Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we have an interesting little rifle here on the bench. This is an Israeli Galil rifle. It is an early gun. It's a pre-89 gun imported by Magnum Research. It's the Galil Model 361. So these are really sought after rifles because of their pre-ban status. So let's give a little information on what that actually means pertaining to the Galil rifle and other imported rifles versus what pre-ban typically means for domestic rifles. So there were two assault weapon bans, if you will. Not a huge fan of that term, but colloquially, that at least that's what it's called. So in 1994, during the Clinton administration, the Biden-Clinton crime bill, otherwise known as the assault weapon ban, kind of went into place, and that banned the manufacture and sale of many different models of semi-automatic rifle by name, and then it also included clones and copies of those particular models, as well as rifles that had detachable magazines and certain evil features, if you will, such as a threaded muzzle and folding stock and prominent separate pistol grip. Things of that nature were banned generally, and that lasted for 10 years until 2004, excuse me, when Congress did not reauthorize it, and it was allowed to sunset or go away. So that is not the ban that eliminated this rifle and others like the HK93 and things of that nature from importation. That ban actually occurred in 1989 under Bush 41, George Herbert Walker Bush, his administration, in response to a mass shooting. Certain imported rifles that did not meet a sporting configuration test. Now, remember when we talked about the Gun Control Act of 1968, that banned importation of certain handguns that didn't pass a sporting purposes test or a sporting configuration test. That was extended to rifles in the 1989 ban. And the 94 assault weapons ban would kind of mirror the 89 ban in that it focused on features such as the detachable magazine, the threaded muzzle, the folding stock, things of that nature. It was deemed to not have a sporting purpose, or it was more of a military rifle, and therefore not importable, and that ban was permanent. That ban still exists today. This rifle in this configuration could not be imported in its entirety like this today. And that's also in 1990, the Chapter 18 U.S. Code, Chapter 922R, also came into being, which mandated a certain percentage of U.S.-made parts in imported rifles to be able to have this configuration. It's all extremely complicated, and it's all somewhat arbitrary, actually, but it is what it is. So this particular rifle, the Galil, is an Israeli gun, and it came to being out of the 50s and mainly the 60s design. During that time, Israel was fielding the FN FAL rifle, both actual FN produced guns and licensed copies of the gun. And Israel, since its inception, has been in various conflicts, one after the other: Yom Kippur War, 6 Days War, all of these conflicts there in the desert. And the FAL, besides being a very long rifle in its as-issued configuration, also proved a little too sensitive, maybe a little too tightly built. The tolerances may have been a little too tight to really survive the fine desert dust and sand well. So Israeli IDF soldiers were actually preferring to use battlefield pickup or captured AKM rifles. And after the conclusion of hostilities, the Israeli defense industry said, we need to do something different. So they put out a call. There were several designs submitted. There's stoner pattern designs from the U.S. Armalite AR-18 was submitted. HK submitted a version of their G3 gun, and they also threw in AK variant, and the AK variant proved to be the most successful for the conditions that were tested in. But the Israelis decided, well, we're not really happy with the construction of the typical AK, so we're going to do it better. So they looked to the Valmet rifle, basically, for the design of this gun. This, instead of a stamped receiver, this is a milled receiver from forging, so it's a steel milled receiver. Now that gives it's stiffer and probably, I mean, arguably it's stronger, but it's heavier, that's for sure. And that was a big drawback with this rifle, was the weight. Another major change from the AK pattern gun was the rear sight was moved back to the rear of the dust cover. Dust cover was made thicker and more sturdy. And in true Israeli fashion, these guns have flip-up tritium battle sights. And of course, this gun, tritium has long since went away. So, but that's what those are, the flip-up tritium battle sights. So these particular guns remained in IDF use really for quite a while. Now, shortly after, well, in the mid-70s, after the 6 Days War was concluded, U.S. really stepped up military aid to Israel, and M16 pattern guns were really being made available to Israel at virtually no cost or very low cost. So there was just a flood of M16 pattern guns, and that really took over the IDF. These were still considered the main rifle, but you see a ton more M16s and M4s than you did Galil pattern rifles. So during that time, IMI also began importing through Magnum Research in the United States. They began importing civilian, legal, semi-automatic versions of the rifle into the United States, and this is one of those. That started in around 79, 80. So that continued for a little while, and then Magnum Research, or a company called Action Arms, took over the importation from Magnum Research and caused some changes in markings. And even Springfield Armory imported, I think, less than 1,000 of these guns also under their name. So the big deal happened in 1989 when that import ban came around, and there were still, these guns were in the pipeline, so they had to be modified. So let me make sure we're clear here. And let's flip it over and look at the receiver markings. So when you're evaluating a Galil, it's important to recognize that there are pre-89 true Galils, and then there are Galil Sporters that were remanufactured off of existing Galils to comport to that 89 ban. And then even after that, there were clone guns. After the IDF started retiring Galil guns, parts kits came into the United States, and companies like Century Arms and American Tactical started producing variants of a Galil type rifle using Galil parts kits on U.S. sourced receivers, and to some degree, varying degrees of success. The Century Arms Galani, and then there were a few other plays, if you will, on the Galil name, and with varying degrees of success. They're not as well made as a Galil rifle. They certainly don't bring the money on the market that the actual Galil does. So let's take a quick peek at what we have going on here on the receiver of this gun. So here we have the Magnum Research importation mark. So when Action Arms took over the importation from IMI, the existing receivers that were in inventory at the time, this was milled away and the Action Arms marking was put on there. And then after that, the Action Arms marking was solely on there. If you notice, the serial number here has an MR prefix. The Action Arms importation guns will have an AA prefix on it. So as we move back, we have the caliber marking, and we have the model 361, then IMI Israel. So once there were still guns in the pipeline when that 89 importation ban came into effect. So those guns had to have features deleted from them in order to make them saleable. And what the importers did is they stamped an S. Some stamps are better than others, some are larger than others, but there'll be an S stamped as a suffix to that model number. So it'd be a 361S or a 372S or whichever model of the Galil you have. So those sporter guns are not, yes, they're still Galils, but they're not considered the same as the true, excuse me, pre-89 or pre-ban Galil, and they don't bring the money on the market. So if you're looking for, if you're thinking about a Galil, if you're looking at a Galil, you want to make sure that you're getting what you pay for. Now, the other Galils, that doesn't mean they're bad rifles. There are Golani sporters that work well, and there are actual Action Arms Galil sporters that work well, but the money is different, or the market is different for those guns. So we have to be a little cognizant of what we're looking for. So a little quick history on IMI, Israeli Military Industries, or Israel Military Industries, was a state-owned company that produced small arms and large arms and all kinds of military equipment for Israel. And until I think it was, 2015. 2015, the small arms division that produces rifles was privatized and was renamed Israel Weapon IWI. And that's the company that exists today that produces the Tavor rifles and things of that nature. And they have a facility in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. They do their own importation through that facility. And they also do localized production of things like the Zion AR-15 platform rifle there in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. So you're not going to see an IWI Galil. Well, I take that back. IWI does produce a rifle called the Galil ACE, and now the Galil ACE Gen 2. It's a different rifle from this rifle. It does address some of the shortcomings of the original Galil rifle. As you can tell, the charging handle on this gun is vertical on the right side. It makes it difficult to mount an optic on this rifle. This recess right here, there are mounts available that mount into this recess, but the optic has to mount so high to clear this charging handle and the sights that it's virtually impossible to get a decent cheek weld when you're optic mounted on the Galil rifle. So the original Galil does not lend itself well to optic mounts, and the Galil ACE does. The charging handles move to the left side, it does reciprocate. So it's easier to put an optic on a Galil ACE. Also, the Galil ACE uses a polymer lower receiver to save weight. That was the biggest shortcoming probably of the Galil rifle, other than the optic thing, was the weight of the rifle. It's very heavy for a 5.56 millimeter gun. So it does chamber the 5.56 NATO round. The magazine is a proprietary magazine on the Galil. It's an AK style mag, but it is a Galil mag, and that just is what it is. The 35 round capacities, there was a 50 round capacity magazine that was kind of unwieldy, and it kind of made a monopod on the rifle. It was difficult to maneuver it in and out of vehicles or tight spaces, but other variants of the Galil existed. This is the AR variant, and in fact, my understanding is that does in fact stand for assault rifle, which is unfortunate. But the other one that you saw imported into the United States was the ARM variant. The ARM variant in select fire was the one that was typically used by the IDF. And the difference with that, wooden 4-end here with a permanently attached bipod. And one of the cool things about the bipod, it had integral wire cutters, and it even had an integral bottle opener on the bipod. And kind of the thought behind that is apparently the Israeli troops were using the magazine feed lips to open bottles with and damaging magazines. So they decided that they'd integrate a bottle opener on the bipod. That's the story that I've always heard. I haven't heard a different story. Sounds very much like an Israeli thing to do. So we talked about these exterior markings. There is another very important marking on real Galil rifles, and one way to determine if a Galil is all original. And we always talk about when we're evaluating a collectible firearm, the three things are originality, scarcity, and condition, right? So scarcity, around 10,000 guns were imported prior to the 1989 ban. So scarcity is definitely there just by virtue of what it is. So with originality, we're pretty clear from the looks of the receiver that and the furniture and all of that this is an original configuration Galil. But there is one more thing to check, and to do that we have to field strip the gun. So when we field strip the gun, it's sort of an AK, but then sort of not. So we've already cleared it, so let's move this out of the way. And in AK fashion, we remove the top cover. Recoil spring guide. The bolt and the long piston lifts up and out. Now, instead of there being a lever here on a block on this milled receiver AK variant or Valmet variant, the magazine tube just slides back, or the gas tube just slides backward and comes off. Now, at this point, we need to remove this handguard because we're looking for some markings here on the barrel. So there is and I did not bring a tool to do that with, so we might just have to fake it. There is a little lever right here that you would pull all the way up 180 degrees, and this handguard would come off the bottom. There are two springs and plungers that live under here that produce tension forward against this plate. So moving this lever allows this plate to slide forward, the handguard slides off. And what we're looking for on the barrel is the date. These Galil barrels are dated. This one, I've already had it off. It's dated 6/82. So that's consistent with Magnum Research Importation on this rifle, and it kind of solidifies the fact that this is an actual real Galil. The other thing to look for on, or the way to tell, I guess is probably a better way to say it, that this is actually an IMI barrel and not some other barrel that's been reattached to a receiver. The IMI barrels will have two wrench flats where it's screwed into the receiver, and this one does. So if your seller will allow you to field strip it to this degree, it's always a good thing to do if you're contemplating a purchase. Now, bear in mind what these guns go for. I mean, this gun, we can't by community standards really talk about selling this gun. Something like this we would sell on a national auction site, probably one that rhymes with bun poker. Please don't Google bun poker. I just thought about that. That's probably not what you want to do. But a national auction site such as that. And I would expect this gun to go, to actually sell in the high 2000s. So it's a significant purchase. It can certainly be a significant purchase. So it does bode well to do a little bit of due diligence on the gun. All our markings are correct. We've had this off. We have the correct barrel markings. We have the wrench flats. Nothing is adulterated or nothing is jacked with on this rifle. So we're confident that this is a real deal Galil. So is a Galil better than the Galil ACE? Well, better is a subjective term. The Galil ACE and the ACE Gen 2 particularly is I guess, modernized version of this Galil rifle. It's lighter, it's more compact. It uses standard AK pattern magazines, and it's available in 7.62 by 39, as well as the 5.56 millimeter. So it's a little bit more user-friendly as far as finding accessories and additional magazines and things of that nature. These Galil magazines are still being produced and they're still out there, and they're not just insanely expensive. but they're certainly not as prevalent as AK pattern magazines, which, I mean, you can get Magpul magazines that'll run in a Galil ACE Gen 2. So if your version of better is usability, probably the ACE 2 or the current Galil version is a better rifle for you. If you're looking for a rifle that is not going to go down in value, then you should probably save your pennies and find a true pre-89 band version of the Galil. The Magnum Research guns tend to bring a little bit more than the Action Arms guns, and certainly the pre-sporter guns, the ones that don't have the S marked on them, are what you would look for. So that would be pretty much this rifle. So the Israeli Galil rifle, interesting little gun. There's a lot of history behind it with the Israelis and the importation in the United States, and then even the political things that happened in the U.S. with that '89 import ban, which cost us a lot of really cool rifles. It cost us FNFALs. It cost us the HK roller lock guns that were the German HK roller lock guns. And it started, if you will, the Clone Wars, is what I call the Clone Wars, where we get all of the knockoffs or all of the copies of those guns that were banned. And some with greater degrees of success than others. We've had several of the Century Arms Golani rifles in the store, and some of them worked well, and some of them really needed a ton of tweaking. Some of them you couldn't get the receiver cover on without a mallet. They didn't fit well at all. We've had crooked sights, and we've had all kind of issues. And then we've had some Century Arms guns that did wonderful. But for the money, if you can, and you're looking for something that you'll be able to, 5 years from now, this gun will probably be $3,500, $3,600. So they're a decent investment if you can find them, but just be careful and make sure you're getting the real deal on the gun. So as always, we appreciate you watching the channel. We hope you're finding this content useful. Please hit that like button, subscribe. We try to push out content every week if we can. And if there's a particular model that you'd like us to take a look at, please drop that in the comments, and we'll certainly do everything we can to accommodate that. Have a good day. We'll see you next time.